Hey there traders, thanks for joining me for this free video from thestockbandit.com. I'm glad that you could make it. So we're right here in the thick of earnings season right now, and it's going to be that way for a few weeks. So anytime that happens, what we tend to see are huge gaps in stocks to the upside or to the downside after the news is out. Now, some people like to gamble on which way that gap's going to be. They like to attempt to, predict the market's reaction to the scheduled fundamental news of EPS or revenue or anything else that might be released or mentioned on a conference call by the company. And me personally, I refuse to do that. I'm not in trading for the thrill of rolling the dice. I can go to Las Vegas whenever I want and do that. And I'm in trading for the money. And so that starts with protecting the capital that I have right now through risk management, and then adding to it by locating quality plays. So, today one of the big gappers after earnings was Polycom. This is PLCM. And, it had a downside move this morning. This yellow line is yesterday's close. And this move to the downside right here on the open was $6.47. So that's about a 30% break in the stock. Now that right there is a big gap. And that's what we're talking about here. So, we've seen these kinds of gaps in stocks over and over in earnings. And, some of them are the start of a new move. Maybe you get a breakdown like this and the stock only finds more weakness, and this is just the beginning of it. Some stocks, this is a little bit of an overreaction, and we see that gap attempt to fill. Okay, so when you get a perceived overreaction, that's what tends to take place. But a lot of times what we get initially is some indecision, and that's what we saw here in Polycom. Now this range is deceptively wide, but it is a range, because initially we saw kind of this push to the downside here in the opening half hour, and that marked the low of the day right there. Then we just moved laterally here, and you can see that by mid-morning we had settled into a very tight range here, really around this 1475 level. So ultimately Polycom did push to the upside. It made a run to 15, and then it hesitated there for a few minutes, and then it just took off. And it ran higher in somewhat non-stop fashion. It took out the morning high, and it was doing this on a CNBC mention at the same time. And I was sitting here watching it, and I was really kicking myself for missing the move, because this was a huge run right here. That's from 1475 up here to 1615. So that's a $1.50 move. That's about 9.5% in the stock in, call it, 45 minutes or so. So the further that it ran, though, the more I started to sense some opportunities. So let me zoom in here on the chart, because this gap really skews the chart. Let me zoom in here on this price action. You can see just how steep this run-up was right here. So the stock is ramping higher here, and it ultimately it showed a little bit of hesitation on this bar right here, but it never made any downside movement, and actually had another strong bar right behind it. And at this point, I'm thinking this has got to be a bit of a short-term exhaustion move. So we started to see a little bit of a pullback right here on this bar. I was able to get short pretty close to the top of that bar, fortunately. I just took a shot at it. It was just kind of, the stock had run sharply higher and then started to pause. It started to hesitate. I'm watching the price action. I'm watching the tape. I'm keeping a close eye on the time and sales. I'm noting which side is getting hit, and I see that the offers are starting to come in and the bids are starting to disappear. So at this point I took a shot at it with a pretty tight stop. I gave it a 10-cent stop against me, so if this thing happened to break new highs by, I think it was about 7 cents from that bar high right there, then I'm going to be covering at 1622. So I set my stop there and I got short, and then this thing kind of started to hesitate here. It started moving down. We saw an attempt here to the downside, which didn't really stick, and then ultimately this thing started to accelerate to the downside. And so let me zoom in a little bit closer here. And on this move right here, that's where I had kind of a low ball bid. I felt like it was a low ball bid. I didn't catch the low of this move, but I was pretty close. And I set out a move here, and I caught about a 50-cent move. I think I caught 48.5 cents of this break right here. and on the short side. So that was a really nice trade, but it was starting to get, again, a little bit emotional to the downside. It was starting to make great strides, and I felt like rather than get greedy, that's the time to start bidding out of the stock. So that's what I did. At that point, the stock kind of settled into this range, and you can draw a bit of a trend line right through here, and you kind of started to get this wedge here. So this is a huge run up. Then you get some consolidation, some narrowing price action here, and then again the stock got rather quiet here. Once it took off to the upside, I got longed for another trade here. Now I only caught part of this move because as it approached this prior high, I offered out, and so ultimately this stock ran considerably higher. It went almost to 17, and so this move from 14.75 to 17, that's a huge run in the stock. And I really didn't participate in much of it. However, this stock was my most profitable stock today in my day trades. I was able to book this quick short here against the big move that I felt like I had missed, which was this big run right here. I caught a quick short there, and I caught a quick long here and only got a piece of this big run. And so, here's the lesson. When a stock is in play like this, you don't have to catch the big move to do really well. This stock made my day, and it's not because I caught this whole intraday run and sat through this pullback and offered out at the highs. I didn't do that. I wish I had. I would have had a giant day, but instead this stock was in play, and I was able to capitalize on a couple of moves which added up quite well. So as earnings season continues, take note of the outlier moves that are starting to happen out there and keep your eyes on those, okay? If there's volume and there's emotion like there was in this stock, then there's big opportunity, and you don't even have to catch a major move to do well. And that's why I'm a trader. So thanks again for joining me, and I will see you soon with more, but until then, trade like a bandit.